Greg Medford from Medford Knife. Well, let's see if I like this angle. How's this angle? You know, I'm gonna cant it down just a little tiny bit so you get a little more of the cooked surface in your face. Let me make a little adjustment here. A little less ceiling and a little more countertop. Yeah, I think that'll work. All right, so forget about it. We're gonna make some meatballs today. I guess it's Saturday. I don't even know what day it is. I think it's Saturday. We're gonna make some meatballs. And so tonight I'm making pasta and meatballs. And I scratch mix some sauce with some canned whole peeled tomatoes. I'm not gonna use this protection for another night. I'm making angel hair pasta tonight. And today what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a blend of pork, beef, and if you can get veal, use veal. If not, use some turkey. I've got some turkey here. We're gonna use some Italian parsley. Got some grated Romano and Parmesan. I actually use Barillo if I'm gonna use dry American pasta. So with this video, we're gonna do the prep for the meatballs. Everyone's always like, yeah, you cook anything else besides steak? Yes, I do. I'm gonna make some Italian garlic bread tonight, and I'll show you how to make these meatballs now. So first thing we're gonna need is some dry bread. So I'm gonna go over here. I've got some hot dog buns that are left over. Give me a second. Okay. So I've got a couple of hot dog buns we're gonna use for the bread. Let's get a bowl out. Okay, we're going to use some garlic. Where's it? Oh, hiding in the back. Oh, here it is. I'm going to use some fresh-ish minced garlic, some pepper and salt. I'm going to use 2 eggs. Now, people have a tendency to get a little too, like baking when they're cooking. Cooking and baking are different creatures. When you're baking, baking is kind of like chemistry lab. You gotta follow, just make it so, just one way. Cooking is a little bit different. I'm pulling out a pan right now so that so we get these made. We'll set them out. Now, you can just put them right on a non-stick pan or any pan really. I have a tendency, I'm grabbing a couple things here. I like to put them on foil so my cleanup is quick and easy. You know, I make fresh cooked meals most nights of the week. So when I do that, cleanup is like, you know, the ugliest part of fresh cooking. So I try to make life for me a little as easy as possible. All right, we're gonna cut up some parsley. We got some Italian flat leaf parsley, a couple of eggs, bread, a little milk. We're gonna mash the bread up in some milk. I think we have about everything we need. And then I think I've shown you guys me making pasta sauce. It's no big deal. I know a lot of you buy pasta sauce from jars and cans, and I did it that way for years. When I made it the first time fresh, I was kind of like, oh my God, not only is it ridiculously easy, it is a different level of control of taste and flavor. So you don't get this complex taste matrix that you kind of layer some stuff into that you like. You get this it's like a white canvas, and you can kind of add in what you want. So you can pull in some garlic, pull some basil in, and if you want to make something heavy in mushroom or some other kind of earthy flavor, you can kind of craft the sauce and make it from scratch that way. And I just started making them that way all the time. So I'll do another video about making sauce sometimes. And I know everybody's got the way their mama did it. If you're Italian, you got the way your dad did it, maybe the way your mom or your aunt did it, or somebody showed your grandmother. There's a bunch of ways to skin the cat that are all really delicious. You know, I found out it's the same thing with firearms. And it's the same thing with knives. I don't get too particular. I try to remember what makes me human, which is being really adaptive. You know, when the vegetation changes, humans, everything else dies off. Humans pick up their shit, throw it over their shoulder, grab their kids, and off they go to the next place they can live. That's our thing, is adaptability. So I try not to be an intransigent human. I try to be really open and adaptive. And it means I can hit a pasta. I don't particularly like sweet pasta sauce, but I can have a sweet pasta sauce where I can taste it and go, oh, that's not the way I'd make it, but man, that's good. I just have my personality is pretty adaptive like that. All right, first things first, let's get the meat in there. Someone's gonna comment, I use my little ASK knife for all this kind of stuff. Now I'm doing a pound of each. So a third beef, a third of this nasty turkey, and a third of this deliciousness called pork. Now you can use just plain pork if you want. I'm actually using mild pork sausage because I kind of love the taste complex that it brings to the meatball. All right, get this out of the way. I have you guys on vertical. I'm used to dealing with the horizontal, but if I'm by myself, it's hard to set up the horizontal and give you a decent view of the cooking area. All right, so we've got our meat in there. Let's rinse our parsley off real quick. Just gonna cold water rinse. Give it a good shake. Kind of sling it off a little bit when I've got it mostly cleaned up. And then, how much do you put in, Greg? Well, I'm gonna show you, about this much. The thing you gotta remember is parsley reduces, fresh greens reduce when you cook them. So I'm gonna put, I don't know, about that much parsley in for 1 pound of sausage. And you know what I'm gonna do actually? I'm gonna hold back just a little bit and then mix it up, see what it looks like, and if it has too much green in it, I can't go backwards. So I'll hold off a little bit, and if it looks right, fine, I'll leave a little off to the side. If not, I'll throw the rest in and mix it up because it's a big batch we're making. So I'll take about half of this, pull it off to the side, and the rest I'm gonna throw in. My mom, when I got divorced, my mom got me this 1950s Greek dinerware from the East Coast, Noritaki. So I have for my dishes. All right, let's throw some parsley in there. Now I'm a little anal retentive. I keep this prep area here on my counter, and I did my counters with marble because I like to prepare right on the counter. I know a lot of people bring their groceries in and set them on their counter. I don't really do that. So I keep this pretty clean, and then I wipe down right before I'm gonna work even again, and I prepare food right on the countertop. So whether I'm making sandwiches for the kids' lunch, or I'm prepping food, or I'm rolling out a pie crust, I do it right here on the table, like right here on the counter. All right, so we've got our parsley in there. So for a pound of beef, a pound of meat, 3 different types of meat, a couple eggs is good to bind it. Because you don't want them falling apart. You want them to have a nice, tight surface on them. And then you can do this a couple different ways. You can bake these, and baking's fine, or you can fry them in oil. I'm gonna bake them because I just don't want the mess and I don't want to deal with the oil. But the proper way to do it is to deep fry them. All right, I'm gonna put, and you only have to put like 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch of oil in the pan. Get it up pretty smoking hot, medium high heat. And so let's put some of this. Oh, it's got such a rich smell. So you can see what container I just got, and I put about 2/3 of it in there. It's 5 ounces, 2/3 of 5 ounces. All right. then I like a little bit of fresh cracked pepper. Put a couple pinches of salt. Don't get all fucking worked up about this. Just enjoy yourself cooking. Don't follow a recipe. It's gonna be delicious, even if something's off a little bit. Unlike a cake, you get something off just a little tiny bit and it doesn't rise. Or making bread. I mean, those are science. You have to follow. Cooking is way less science. So for this size right here, let's see what we're gonna do for bread. I think we're gonna toss a few, I don't know, what do we toss? We're gonna use like 3 hot dog buns, maybe 6 slices of bread. I always keep hot dog buns around because I can whip up hot dogs for the kids real quick. And then, I don't know, I just put a little milk in here. It's probably a 1/4 of a cup. And then you just take your hand and you mush it into the milk here, and the bread will soak up the milk, and you're gonna make mushy breadcrumbs. So I don't know, you can get a little kind of a savage mush like this. I get all the dry lumps out of it. I want the bread to be moist when it goes into the meatballs. How about that debate? It's so funny. Trump is like, the Trump campaign is now like taunting the Biden campaign. I mean, they were before. You know what's funniest about the debate? I'm gonna talk some politics with you while I'm getting this ready. Just getting a little lumps out of here, making sure it's all moist. We're gonna throw it right in on top. All right. So the reason you do the bread with the milk is if you just put dry breadcrumbs, and if it's a Tuesday night and you're just rushing home, smacking some food together for everybody, no one's gonna have a problem with it. But if you wanna make a meatball that when you bite into it, it's like moist and almost like runs down your chin, delicious meatball. You wanna be a little over the top. Take the time to do that, and it keeps a lot of sweetness and moisture in the meat. Now I'm gonna take my hand, just like a goon, and I'm gonna mix this up. Oh, I forgot my garlic. So, I'm a fan of garlic. I'm gonna put a kind of heaping spoon in here, and then maybe a little bit more. My grandmother is rolling in her grave right now. She could smell garlic. She was like a vampire. I think she was part vampire. She could smell garlic from a half mile. If you had garlic for lunch yesterday, you were banned in her house. The funniest part of the debate, I gotta tell you, and I'm just thinking I'm gonna throw the rest of the parsley in here. The funniest part of the debate, so the non-stemmy 2/3 of a big bushel of Italian flat leaf parsley is what I'm throwing there. Oh, and a little bit of Italian seasoning, or herbs de Provence. I'm gonna put some herbs de Provence in here. Just to continue on with that nice, fresh, earthy flavor in with the meat. Okay, that's it. That's everything. The funny thing about the debate was watching the reaction. It's like, honestly, it's like a lot of us have been saying since the last election, like, hey, he doesn't seem like he's all there. We're like, hey, he's not, he's kind of yelling around like an angry old man. He's like just holding on to the last bits of it. I don't know about this guy. The funny part is the people who have been blocking for him for the last 4 years, they're having to honestly admit, and I think it's hilarious, like the meltdown the Democrats have had since this whole debate happened is hilarious. Because the rest of us have known about this for years. And it's like they're all of a sudden just realizing the guy's befuddled. And I feel sorry for him. Like, I think it's elder abuse. I don't make fun of him because he's old. I make fun of him because his goddamn wife doesn't block for him. If you are with a woman who will allow you to be thrust into the limelight the way he is as president, have to perform, and have it be such, they don't run a soda straw company, they're running the United States of America. So there's probably 3 internal people, a speechwriter, a chief of staff, and somebody else who's running the country. And it's definitely, people say it's the Obamas. Their only reason to put up with the hassle of running the country is for the plane, the service, and the cars. The sheer and utter unfolding of the ground before your feet. There's no reason to do it. If you're living the good life down in Martha's Vineyard, what the hell would you want to deal with that quagmire called Washington, D.C. for? Now, you got a lot of ingredients in here. So what you want to do is once you've got them kind of mixed, you want to start folding. So what I do is I'll press the meat out, grab a side, and fold it over. Because, not because it's like Damascus steel. You make a certain amount of folds, and all the little lumps of impurities are so small, the overlapping bits are different, and you get a really nice cross-section of the mix. So I just fold it. I think you fold it about 15 times, and everything is really, really mixed in there really well. Way more than you need to for a meatball. So I think I'm gonna bake these just because I don't want to deal with the mess. But if at the end here I'm feeling fancy, maybe we'll fry them, deep fry them. Cook them in oil, even safe fry, and people lose their shit. Now, I know everyone's a low carb these days. And one of the things you can do, the Italians, they don't have the big weight problem like we do in the United States. Italy, it does not, 70% obese. Part of it is they live a really relaxed lifestyle in the rest of the world. So if you look at us, we got a lot of guys, even guys like me, got a little belly. We don't even barely drink, eat pretty healthy, work out pretty constantly. The cortisol gives us this belly. It's not the food we're eating. It's really the cortisol. And the other thing that happens is, because I don't have fat everywhere on my body, a lot of guys just got a little belly. The dad bod, right? There's a lot of stress with the profession. There's a lot of stress raising a family, and there's a lot of stress financially getting ahead in America. And maybe they've got some of that right in the rest of the world, and we've got it wrong. They probably do, because they look pretty damn happy when I see them. I like having money, because money gives me some freedom, right? But it's goddamn stressful getting it. But I can't give up eating. I can't give up enjoying one of the 3 things we do, right? It's music, making love, and eating. Those are like the 3 human, absolute, total experience kind of things we can do as the types of beings we are, I think. But I think there's something to this non-GMO flour that's used in Europe. Because like in Italy, they eat pasta and bread is a huge part of their diet. And they're not all walking around portly. And I honestly think it's because they're, obviously there's walking going on, but I think it's because of there's something to do with the quality of the flour. There's something about Europe, it's illegal to bring American flour into Europe. It's illegal. And they don't want any genetically modified flour in their country. And there may be something to it that we maybe all be missing. I don't know if any of you know about this, but there's a company called Monsanto that controls the seed business in the United States. And if you even grow a crop that gets seeds from another crop blown onto it that are of Monsanto origin, Monsanto will sue you. So they've basically sued their way, they've litigated their way into a kind of monopolistic presence in the United States. I don't even know if we could grow Italian wheat here. If we got the seeds, I think we'd get sued. So if you ever, it's an interesting thing to read about. Now I make my meatballs a little bit bigger because I like in presentation when I'm doing angel hair pasta to plunk 2 meatballs down. And I compress them a little bit and I roll them in my hands to give them kind of a smooth, gapless exterior. Because when I do that, I find it keeps all the moisture inside the meatball. It like seals up really nicely. Now, if you bake them at a really high temperature, bake them at like 400. And what it'll do is it kind of again, the reason you want to deep fry these ultimately is because when you put them in that hot oil, it seals the skin. It forms a little crust on the outside. So not only do you get that little crust, but it seals the moisture in the meatball really, really well. And it's always a challenge when you're making meatballs to have them, if you want to do it well, the challenge is how do you have them have the right amount of moisture and not be tough and clunky. You want them to be delicate and have great flavor. And you want when people eat them, if you're kind of chefing it up a little, if you're amateur chefing, you want people to sink their teeth into it. And you want to see the look on their face change. Like, kind of like an orgasm. You want to look at somebody and you want to see them like, kind of like, oh my God, what is that? And that's what you want them to have with a meatball. You want them to just like, oh, what is that? So it's the very best of a steak, the very best of a sausage, the very best of a cheeseburger, a hamburger, and maybe the very best of all of those things wrapped together with the very kind of countryside, yummy flavor. If you're out on a farm and been out working all day and someone wants to cook this for you, you want your face to melt and you sink your teeth into it, Just forming these up. What was interesting about the election, or the debate, was just watching everybody go, like, oh my God, this guy's incompetent. He's too old for the job. We can't believe this. It's almost like it happened yesterday, but it didn't. I'm gonna go back to that first meatball because I made it a little small. So 2 of these meatballs. So if you're gonna feed your typical modern woman who's like light on calories and hitting Pilates and all that, they're gonna have one of these meatballs likely with a very small amount of angel hair pasta, and they won't feel stuffed afterwards. But one meatball is gonna do it for them. These are about, I'd say, half the size of a baseball. I don't know, maybe 2 inches in diameter. I'll show you these and then I'm gonna get them in the oven. And you could be preheating the oven right now. I'm not in a big hurry. Get this done here. And then I'm gonna make my sauce, and then I take the meatballs and I put them in the sauce towards the end, right before serving. I mean, not like right at serving, but so you let some of the meatball, the skin of the meatball will be sealed up from the high temperature you cook it at. Oh my God, that one might be the biggest one. That one might have been a little overzealous. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do a little, what do they call those? Siamese twins. I'm gonna do a little Siamese twin removal of Quato. I'm gonna remove a little Quato from that one. And this one might have a little extra. And then this one will now be about the right size. And then I'll go back to the 2 that I finger banged, kind of clean them up a little bit. I do the same thing when I'm making cheeseburgers. I pound them out and really square the sides. And when you do that, the cheeseburger stays amazingly moist. If you just press them or flatten them out, they have splits. A lot of that oil just drips out of them and they become dry and they're nowhere near as good. I do all sorts of seasoning when I'm cooking burgers as well. So listen, we got a dozen of these. Let's say you were having 3 couples over. There's going to be 6 people. This is going to more than feed 6 people meatball-wise, because most adult women are going to want one of these meatballs, and the guys are all going to want a couple of them. Most of the guys are going to want 3 or 4, but only having 2, they'll be happy afterwards. I'm going to wash my hands real quick. And then, I don't know if you guys want, maybe what I'll do right now, why don't we make some sauce, if you guys want, and kind of see the process here. That's what we'll do. All right. Meatballs made. Time for some sauce. We're gonna do a camera move here. Give me just a minute. I'm gonna get one of my bigger pots out. So this is a pot for boiling lobster. And let me see if I'm gonna use that to make the sauce. No, you know what? I'll probably cook the pasta in that. Let me get my other pot. Give me a second. See, I'm wondering how that's gonna do. Oh, that's gonna be so good. All right, so let's do a little bit of a camera move, and then I'm gonna show you how I make pasta sauce. It's really quick and easy, and I'll explain a few things, and then maybe you guys will decide that making fresh sauce is better than buying something in the can. So let me get this situated here. I'm gonna put this up high so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Does that work? Hey, yeah, that'll work great. All right, so boom, boom, boom. Let me get my pan over here, my pot. So a lot of times people will do this in a big flat saucepan. I do it here because I put my meatballs in afterwards. So first things first, we'll get some heat going. Get the light on. I'm gonna turn the fan on. Hopefully that's not too loud for you guys. I'm gonna do some high temperature oil so it doesn't smoke a bunch. All right. We're gonna do hold on. So we've got some fresh Italian parsley, thank goodness. All right, so we're going to throw some Italian, some flat leaf parsley in there. We can either, because I've got you guys here with me now. Normally I would prep this a little differently, but if I was prepping a little differently, what I would do. Now, if you ever saw Goodfellas, take a razor and you thin slice maybe 4 large garlic cloves. If not, take a big tablespoon of garlic, get it into that oil. We're going to throw our parsley on top of that. We're going to get a spoon, and we're going to get the parsley and the garlic. We're going to toss them around in the olive oil, and just get them to brown a little bit. And you want the oil to soak up all that garlic flavor. And you'll see the parsley starts to reduce, turns into little bits. So the parsley gets soft. It almost dissolves now when you eat it. Now we'll do a little bit of salt and pepper. Again, we're trying to get that oil at the bottom of the pan, which was about, I'm going to put another tablespoon in. It's about a tablespoon and a half, maybe. A little more pepper. 2 pinches of salt, and then you can always flavor to taste. Once we get this going, move this around. Next, so I get some, I use a large can of crushed tomatoes. Now you'll see down at the bottom of the pan right now, it's glazing a little bit and it's browning. And our garlic is browning. The oil is soaking up all of this awesome flavor that's releasing. And then the parsley's there, laying its flavor in. We pour this in. It's got a lot of water in it, which blanches, not blanches, it deglazes the pan. So I pour a little bit in like this to deglaze the pan. Get everything stuck off the pan. Now the bottom of the pan is scraped, shiny and clean. And this is really rich in flavor. Just a quick little cheater step. Throw in your crushed. Then I throw in whole peeled. I don't know what the Italians were into, but somebody must have figured out there were lectins in the skin, so they removed the skin on tomatoes, and I've heard you shouldn't eat a tomato if it's got the skin on it, because the protective shell that's on it is bad for us. Okay, so we got our big tomatoes in there, and then I get Italian diced stewed. So I do 2 big cans, one crushed, one whole, one small of Italian stewed. Just to give it a little flavor profile. Once I've done that, I stir it up. You want to mix in all that flavored slurry that you made initially. That's what it looks like right now. And you got these whole tomatoes. So we're going to let this cook for a little bit, and we're going to crush the tomatoes with our spoon so that the pasta sauce has got these nice big chunks. Now, you can reach in with a potato masher like this, which is what I'm going to use. I'll reach in with a potato masher, and I'll mash my tomatoes. And the sauce is made. Now I let this, okay, so it's 2 o'clock Arizona time. Dinner's going to be around 6 or 7. I'll let this stew for a while. So this will just simmer here. So I'm going to bring it to a boil, then I'll turn the heat way down to simmer and just let this kind of, I don't know, kind of cure. If you just heat it up and let it cool, you miss it. If you heat it up and then bring it down to a simmer and let it cook for a few hours, all those flavors permeate every mouthful, and you really get your best, sauce. So I'll let this come to a boil, and here's the thing: you gotta babysit it while you're doing this stage, or you're gonna burn the shit out of it and ruin the whole thing. So I'm gonna bring it to boil, then stir it, bring it to boil, stir it, bring it to boil. I do that till I can't get it to come out of boil. Then I turn the heat down to simmer, put the lid on it. I'll crush the tomatoes at that point, put the lid on it, and let it ride for a while. So people are gonna come over for dinner night. They're gonna be hanging out, probably have a cocktail or whatever, and I'll pull the meatballs out as soon as they're done in the oven, which will be about an hour of cook time. And matter of fact, let's get them going. So we're gonna bake those at 375, since they're big. We don't want to burn them on the outside. This will come to temperature, and then we'll throw those in and cook them. They take about, 45 minutes to cook. You could tell poking on them if they're cooked. Should be really firm and not push in at all. When they're cooked, now you throw them in the sauce, and you let them cook with the sauce. So now the meat, the oils from the meat, the cheese, the seasoning in there, the sauce, all kind of blends together, and the sauce picks up some flavor from the meat, and the sauce becomes delicious. So everybody, I've seen, starting to boil here, give you a little view. I've seen people, unless you're Italian, most people don't respect what goes into a good red sauce. And if you do it right, and there are other things you can do to make it fresher than what I'm doing. You can get fresh garden tomatoes and boil them, let them cool, peel them, but Jesus, who's got time for that? But this gets you, it's like law of diminishing returns. This gets you pretty damn close to crazy good, and to get that just, Michelin level insanity, it requires heirloom tomatoes that have been hand peeled and boiled and blah, 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 and crushed out and all done by hand. But I just don't have time to spend the entire day making red sauce. You can be done with this in 10 minutes. Let it simmer for a couple hours while you're doing your thing. Do some laundry, shuffle around the house on the weekend, go flop around in the pool. And then not only that, the house smells great. The garlic and the parsley and the sauce, the tomatoes and the olive oil, that's all floating around in the house. And it just makes the house feel homey. So This is looking pretty good here. So I stirred it again because it's pretty thick. It gets hot sections in the pan. So I stirred it. It'll take 10 or 15 seconds. It's already starting to boil again. I'll let it boil and then I'll stir it, making sure the bottom doesn't stick up, because that gives you a bad flavor, you know, when you overcook your tomatoes. It's like burnt tomato soup, right? So I'll let this start bubbling again. Once it's bubbling again, I'll get it. I'll stir it and get it out of bubble. Just starting to bubble. If you want, I'll bring the camera in closer. Maybe so you can look right down. Right down while I'm working here. All right, sports fans. Whoops, we don't want this thing to tip over, Jesus. All right, so you can see it down at the bottom of the screen, right? So just starting to boil again. It's got a great look. You see the parsley floating around in there. It's not just, I don't just like red sauce. I like some dimension to it. I want it to have some thickness. I guess in red sauces, I like me a little J-Lo. So you see I stirred it, it stopped boiling. Now it's getting close to boiling again. You'll see it'll come to life. As soon as it starts boiling, I'm gonna do this again, just a couple of times to where I get the whole thing to temperature, and then I'll crush out the tomatoes. Oh my God, he can barely talk. What has happened? And we're like, we've been sitting here for 4 years going, the guy's not all there. Now, Joe Biden on his best day, he was a dull pair of scissors. If he was a pair of scissors, it would be the kind you go to cut and the paper just folds over. The guy was never a sharp dude. And you can hear him talk. You can hear him struggling for his vocabulary, and his vocabulary is sometimes malapropos. He has a sophomoric vocabulary, which is fine, but it's indicative of someone in a major world-leading position. He has a sophomoric vocabulary and unrefined thinking. And you can hear it on his best day that he was sophomoric and unrefined. And on his worst days, he's cognitively impaired, and the 12-year-old that he was is now 6. And I like old people. I'm not an ageist at all. I have old people around in my life a lot. I've spent a lot of time with old people learning to cook and sew and paint and create my world and be crafty, because they were all survivors of the Great Depression. My grandparents, obviously, all of our grandparents are old when we know them. I like old people, and I don't need speed from them. I like the wisdom of their age, if you know what I mean. So now we've broken down the tomatoes. This has got some beautiful chunks in it now, beautiful color, and it'll have wonderful, more importantly, it's gonna have wonderful layers of taste. So I'm gonna let this cook again, and then I'm gonna do a little hot sample on it. And I'll make a little judgment as to how we're doing in our salt content. Because now you know what you got. Now, if you overcook it, I mean, you start too early in the day and it cooks for a couple hours, you can end up, let me straighten the camera, you can end up needing to put a little bit of water into it to let it flow again the way you like a sauce to. I don't like a sauce to sit like a clump. I like it to kind of flow over my food. So, a couple of little tricks. Let's say you're making angel hair pasta, or you're making fettuccine, you're making linguine, or not fettuccine, you're making linguine noodles or whatever. Whatever noodles you're gonna make with your red sauce, make enough red sauce that when you have your noodles cooked, let's say for a dinner party of 6 people or family of 6, you could take 2 big ladles of the sauce. So you cook your pasta, and you know, when you're making your pasta, use the best water you can. So if you've got filtered drinking water, use that. Don't fill it from the tap. Use your best water, because the water has a big impact on dry noodles if you're reconstituting dry pasta when you cook it. Now, if you're getting fresh pasta, different story. You're actually just cooking the pasta, but you're actually saturating your dry pasta. You're reconstituting it with moisture. And if you use just regular tap water, unless you live in one of the rare places in the country that has delicious tap water, it's an error. All this work you do and you put it on cardboard. So you take regular pasta, use the best water you can to cook your pasta in, and then a lot of salt. So I put as much as a half a cup of salt or a cup of salt in the water that I'm boiling it, so that when the noodles cook, they're actually in a gentle brine and they've got a little salty flavor to them. And nobody will need to touch those salty noodles with the acidic tomato sauce on top, savory meat in it, and you just get this really balanced. There's a playground in your mouth. So I've been around old people my whole life, and some of them have been quick-witted. Most of them, they're patient. And when they choose to finally move, it has decades of wisdom we don't have. And there's so much to wisdom and experience that is undervalued by people these days. So I'm going to put it on my other, because I've got a simmer. So over to my simmer burner. Turn off my super hot burner. So I don't need old people to be quick-witted like George Stephanopoulos, or I don't need my I don't need them to be stand-up comedian quick. I do need them to be thoughtful and wise. Trump's just an interesting character because he's funny as a fucking stand-up comedian, and you can see he looks at topics like they're bits. He'll go up to do a 1 hour, 2 hour speech. I've seen him talk for 2.5 hours. He'll have a sheet of paper with like 10 topics on it. And the first one's like the mainstream media. And so he'll go into he's got a little bit that he's worked on, and it's just his mainstream. He says, the mainstream media. And then he just starts talking about the mainstream media. And then he starts nicknaming, and it's just fucking hilarious. So he's pretty quick-witted. You can see that he's not 52 and he's not at like his top of his game. There's some point at which our quickness and our wisdom kind of cross on the curves, and then our quickness diminishes as our wisdom continues to probably go up. But he's doing really well for his age, and he's doing well for most people, anybody's age. The two of them on stage together is stark. Okay, let me get a little taste of this. Make sure this is your garlic spoon, so make sure you don't just put your spoon in here and sample it. It's going to be super heavy on garlic. And it will burn your mouth off, so let it cool a little bit. Let's see how this is. It smells fucking good. So I used originally some kosher salt. Now I'm going to use some iodized salt. So I'm going to put about another teaspoon in here. That was half a teaspoon, my bad. I'm going to stir this up again. Anyway, it was amazing to watch between the two candidates, and then to see the reaction has been what's priceless. These morons, sycophant, Trump derangement syndrome people, they have been blocking for this guy so long that when it happened right in front of everybody, boy, they didn't know what to do. All right, so I rinsed off my spoon. Oh, ridiculous. Now, I do my pasta, what I was saying, I do my sauce a little bit light on salty, even though I like salt. I like food with a more salty flavor to it. That was hot. because my pasta has a salt, because I use so much salt in my water when I cook my pasta. So if you use my method with really good water that's heavily salted for cooking your pasta, I would recommend you go lighter than your salt flavor on your marinara, your red sauce. Because when they come together, if this is salty and that's salty, it's just too fucking much. Now, last thing is, I'll get the meatballs cooking. Oven's at 265. This is really straightforward. I'm gonna put them in the oven. I'm gonna let them cook until they look done on the outside. The oven's at 265. I have it set for 375. So when it gets to temperature, I'm gonna toss them in. And you don't want to put them in warm. You don't want to put them in warm. You want to put it in hot. You want the oven hot because you want to seal that outside of the meatball so it holds all the juices in. You don't want a bunch of juice running around in the pan. If you did that, you cooked it too low. You don't want to do meatballs low and slow. You want to do them fast and hot. Seal up the outside, lock the moisture on the inside. Okay, so we've got fresh sauce made. I am not going to cook with the oil today because I just didn't, it's the way to do it, but I didn't want to, it's one way to do it, but I just didn't want to deal with the mess. So baking them super clean, even though, a lot of people are like, oh, we don't want to have that much oil in our cooking, in our food. When you get the oil at the right temperature, it doesn't sink into the food at all. It builds that skin on the outside of the meat, and then when you pull them out, you blot them with cloth, and they're really quite dry on the outside, and on the inside soaking moist. So my meatballs are done. We're gonna get these guys in the oven here pretty quick. We did meatballs, we did red sauce. Tonight's gonna be an awesome dinner. I'm gonna make some garlic bread. A lot of different ways to make garlic bread. I got a couple of my favorite ways. I don't like it all soggy. So I slice it in big diagonal slices. I put butter on it and I grill it. Then I take it and I season it, and then I'll put it in the oven to warm the bread. But I like to grill the exterior to put a crust on the bread, and I think you will find that to be delicious. A little bit of Italian seasoning and butter and a little bit of light garlic powder. You don't want to freak people out. And then if you try doing them, when I say grill them, I mean on a cast iron skillet. I like to grill them on a cast iron and give them a little toasting on the outside. Then put the rest of your seasoning on. Put the butter on the flat iron, and then put some seasoning on them. And they're not dry; they're obviously still moist. And then put them in the oven and let them warm up. Have the oven on low, like 200 or something. And what you get is this delicious bread that's got a variety of texture, good flavor on the outside, and hopefully good bread's got good flavor on the inside, right? So you get that combination of seasoning and that warm, earthy flavor of a good bread recipe. And then, the next level of all of this is controlling this three-dimensional flavor, texture, color experience for all ingredients. And my point in doing this is this makes for a really high-end Sunday dinner, Saturday dinner, friends over for dinner kind of thing. To go to that, you can do that Michelin level, but what you got to do is you've got to get some Italian flour, you got to get some recipes, you got to practice a little baking, get to some baking, some bread. Now you've got scratch-made bread where you can play with the recipe a little bit, tune it just the way you like, put that rosemary in it, put that garlic flavor that you like in it, build that into your recipe, and now you start bringing this really dynamic. And honestly, it's just playing around. Making bread is super easy, but you can't deviate from the base ingredients, but you can add stuff to it, which is a lot of fun. But if you're using non-GMO Italian wheat, which you can buy, flour, which you can buy online, you get that stuff in. I don't know, maybe it's like $50 it's like $1 a pound. You get some of that stuff in, and actually, once you've made bread a couple of times, if you set yourself up for it, it's really a piece of cake to make it. I just don't usually get my life that tied into one meal, but you can, and it's a ton of fun. I'm building a Neapolitan pizza oven out back, and when I do that, I'll talk about making bread dough a little bit more, so we make some pizza dough and kind of see how that goes. So some 98% scratch-made pasta sauce. I've heard Italians call it gravy. I've heard them call it sauce. I've heard it called, it's not marinara really, but red sauce, a tomato sauce. And then if you want to up your game on that, again, it's growing some tomatoes or buying This is where you go to the farmer's market and you buy some right off the vine tomatoes that have that really, really earthy tomato taste. It's real fresh, that disappears over time in the grocery store. You get those, do the boil, do the peel, go through that whole rigmarole. It's going to get you the maximum absolute return on the investment of your time. It'll maximize it. This gets you the optimum. It's not maximum, it's optimum. It's really fucking good. RFG, baby. And then the meatballs, those are fantastic. And I don't know how you'd control these any different other than slice the meat, cutting up fresh garlic instead of the pre-minced garlic. But honestly, it's just a time and a mess saver. So you make some little tiny compromises to bring a really high-level eating experience without much more effort. All fresh ingredients, really simple, not a lot of complexity to it. And the menus aren't crazy. Once you know how to make Italian meatballs, it'll change how you make. Oh, hey, look at you. Once you've seen what adding these ingredients does to a meatball, you'll think about how you make a cheeseburger differently, and you start bringing some of this chefery over to making a cheeseburger. You all of a sudden start making the best burger you've ever had before. Because restaurants, it's production food. They don't want to take the time to do all of the rigmarole to make the ultimate burger, even if they say they're the ultimate burger. Come over to my house sometime. If you're in Phoenix, I will make a cheeseburger that'll melt your fucking face off. And you could tell me how it rates in your life experience of burgers. And it's just bringing a little bit of that meatball theory over into burgers, but with different flavors, more American style instead of Italian style. Okay, that's Meatballs, red sauce, dinner happening on Saturday night, January, what the fuck is it, the 6th. Greg Medford, Medford Knife. Hey, go stop by my knife channel. As crazy as I am about food, I'm 10 times more crazy about knives. Go to medfordknife.com or askknives.com. I got all kinds of new things coming. Check out my new line that's coming this year. We call them our Main Street line. And it's all knives in the $200 price point, all American made. I'm super excited to bring these to the marketplace. I hope you guys enjoyed doing a little cooking with me and getting ready for a little fun evening entertaining. And that's what I do. I'll see you around campus. I'm out.